think we need to have a conversation about alpha men because I noticed there's this ongoing thing where there seems to be a miscommunication between men and women on what alpha actually is because I think that women have a very different impression of what alpha men are compared to the impression that men have. And so, why I say this is because when you look at how men behave, especially when they are around each other, you can kind of see what behaviors they think are alpha. Because it's like generally the overall outcome of exuding alpha traits as a man is that you're genuinely able to exert control over other people with a level of freedom. And usually, the control you're exerting over other people is something that is supported by those around you because they believe that you're supposed to be in that position. Because, yeah, of course, you're like our classic leader of the pack. So, I think according to men's definition of what alpha is, ugh, a lot of the time, first of all, there's like a physical look that I notice men tend to gravitate towards. So oftentimes that physical alpha look is, they're tall, they are muscular. And by muscular, I don't just mean, a little dad bod or a little six pack. It's just kind of visible underneath the tummy. No, like it's a proper chiseled look that they got going on in their heads of what an alpha man's supposed to look like. And they think that he's supposed to dress like those those 3-piece suits that men wear, yeah. But those men who overdo it in the gym and so their trousers are like really tight on their legs and then they wear those loafers with no socks. Very that sort of look is what I imagine that these men think the alpha is supposed to look like. And generally, these men tend to avoid all types of emotion and focus on being what they call protectors, which we will get into that word. We will get into the word protector. But they tend to avoid all emotion unless that emotion is anger and grrr, Hulk smash. um Another thing about alpha men in terms of how they view themselves is they like to see themselves as above other men. So they probably use these arbitrary reasonings to decide they're better than other men. So I don't know, what do men be doing when they hang out with each other? Do they be like arm wrestling or something? Like whatever. Like I'm trying to imagine like what men do to assess whether one man is more alpha than the other. Like seeing as being an alpha male is such a random made up thing, I wonder what their own like criteria is. Because now when we look at what a woman's impression of an alpha man is, I don't think it entirely or necessarily matches what I just described from what I notice men tend to define as an alpha man. So when I think about a woman's definition of an alpha man, what I see is obviously the word protector comes to mind. And I did say we're going to touch on this word protector, which we're still going to revisit that word. So just note down protector because we're coming back to protector. But, generally, when we're talking about alpha male from the definition of a woman's perspective, yeah, protector. Probably he's tall. Now, this is the part that most men tend to skip over. This alpha man, usually has got money. He can make things happen because he has the resources to put things into action. I think where there's a mutual crossover between both men's and women's definition of alpha male is, there's a certain build that man seems to appear to have. You know, he's tall, he's muscular. I noticed another thing that I observe women seem to point out as an alpha trait in men is when he has a deep voice. So I'm just asking guys, do I technically count as an alpha male? Because I got a very deep voice. Like obviously, like like yo, babes, what you saying? Like obviously, like man's just trying to chat to you and that in it. Like obviously, so like give me a like, oh my god, is it giving alpha? So obviously, like as an alpha man, you gotta have a deep voice because you gotta have authority when you're speaking. So yeah. So yeah, women tend to see men who have deep voices as more alpha. Which I don't think that's entirely wrong, because even when we observe like human psychology and how people who are in positions of authority speak, if you notice when someone is speaking from an authoritative position or they're discussing something that requires them having to be serious, they tend to drop their voice down to the deeper region of their vocal range. And if they're trying to communicate something that is more chipper and happy and good morning everyone, it's so nice to see you all, there's usually a higher pitch to that. So yeah, I guess authority is associated with like a deeper voice. So I'll give the alphas that. Fine, you can have that. Another thing that I think women see as an alpha trait in men, I would say he's not afraid to take the lead. Now, with this taking the lead thing, I sit on the line, I sit on the fence of this one, because whilst I do like when a man is self-directed, as he should be, something about a man telling me to do doesn't sit well with my spirit. So where do we draw the line between leadership and control? Because, a lot of straight women, they say what they like in a man or what they want from a man is a man to lead them. Till this day, guys, I'm still trying to figure out, where is everyone going? What memo did I miss? Where is everyone going, and why does men need to lead us there? Is there some sort of promised land that I've missed out on the invite to, that only men can get you onto that guest list? Like, you guys need to fill me in on this, because I'm starting to panic a little bit now. I'm not gonna lie. When everyone's like, yeah, I need a man to lead me, I'm like, lead you to where? Girl, where are we going? And why do we need a man there? Please tell me. I'm scared. Because it's like, if you lot are all going somewhere and a man is leading you, and you mean to tell me that I can't get there without a man, I'm kind of scared, guys. So put me on, please. Just discreetly inform me of this secret location that men are leading you to, so that I can decide on whether this is worth me collecting a random man to get me there too, for the sake of arriving at this highly coveted destination. Because what the hell? Girl, what the hell? But yeah, man, there's many women who say they want a man to lead, and I'm not sure about this one. I'm not sure about seeking leadership from men, because there is, I don't know, man. I think maybe it's being conflated with protection. I do think that protection is something that I have on my list of traits that I would expect from a man who is in my life romantically. Protection. Protect me from what? From other men. So now we've got women's perspective of alpha male, and we've got men's perspective of alpha male. Now my perspective of alpha male is a mixture of both, because alpha, as we know it, is something that we used to refer to, like, like when you see a pack of wolves or maybe a pack of lions, usually there's a ringleader of that group. So when we observe how those two animals I mentioned behave in nature, they're spending majority of their time hunting for food. So of course it makes sense for them to have that sort of framework of, okay, you be the leader, We'll play midfield defense. What do they call it? So what's the rest of the team called? Because they're not footballers. I can't really say midfield defense. What do you call the other wolves that are not leaders? The group. The rest of the group. Rest of the group, yeah, you guys just watch while I sleep type of energy. Like, stand on guards. Okay, that's fine because those are animals that live in the wild and have to hunt for their basic survival. And they have to ward themselves off of predators that might want to eat them. Fair play. However, as human beings, we're not met with the same type of threats to our survival, especially if you live in a fucking metropolitan ass city. We don't need men to move in packs with a leader. Just go and do what you're doing, innit? So, my definition of an alpha male, well, I would say, first of all, I don't think alpha men are serious people. I think that alpha men are people who like having control over women. So the definition that I have of an alpha male is, yeah, he puts a lot more energy into protein shake than his personality. He is teetering on the line of red pill, if not already in that red pill territory. And red pill is the super heightened misogyny that we see exhibited through the podcasts and the discords and the Twitter groups of men who are discussing all the ways that they wish misogyny would take over the world and allow them to have full control over women. So red pill is the idea that, incels should take over the world. So I see alpha males in my perspective as that. Another thing I see in alpha men from my experience and my own observations, they like arguing with women. They like arguing with women. And that doesn't sit well with me because what they be arguing with women about is usually things that they can resolve by just speaking to other men, but they would rather debate women than to just confront men. That's something I observed because usually when a man has stepped in and, dare I say, saved the day, because sometimes the guys, I'm not gonna lie, once in a while, just for the fun of it, I play into the whole oh, you saved my day. Once in a while, it's just fun, guys. And it's nice to just be like, oh, I need some help. Can you help me with this? Oh, you're such a lovely gentleman. Once in a while, it's useful and beneficial for me to stroke a man's ego and be like, oh, you've really saved my day. So I think my definition of an alpha man, especially using the example of when a guy comes and saves his day, I don't really know if I see that as alpha or if I see that as a man just being a gentleman. If anything, the traits that I admire in men, I just see it more as gentleman. I don't see it as alpha. Because if someone was to ask me, what's your type? Are you attracted to alpha men? My answer would be no, because what alpha men behave like when we observe the majority of alpha men, it's not giving what you lot said it was meant to give. They're the ones who be like, what's your body count? I'm like, why do you care about how many people I've slept with? Why are you measuring my worth by how many people have cream pied me? You don't need to know that. And even if I gave you, and the thing is, for a woman, you can't even tell what the body count is. I could lie, I could make it up. What are you gonna do about it? What are you going to do? How are you going to check? How are you going to know? Do you know I can lie that I'm a virgin? What are you going to beat me? What the hell? But I sometimes end up in conversations with certain men against my will, mind you. And the misogyny just rolls off their tongues without them even noticing. The other day, I was hanging out in a group of people, and one of the guys in the group, he was Nigerian. We were discussing just the ways that Nigerian men have these double standards. And in that particular conversation, I remember saying to him that I think it's very interesting to see the ways that Nigerian men have a reputation for disliking women who look like them. So they'll call us aggressive, they'll call us manly because we're dark skinned and we're very visible in our African features. But they wouldn't call a mixed race woman or a white woman aggressive. They wouldn't tell a mixed race woman or a white woman that they look manly with their natural hair. I kid you not. I had a Nigeria that conversation. There was a guy. This guy said to me that I looked manly with my dreadlocks. Oh, and this is somebody who he sees himself as alpha, because as a Nigerian woman, I could tell you that most Nigerian men, their aspiration is to be an alpha. But remember, men have their own version of what alpha is compared to what women see as alpha. There are times when those definitions match. Sometimes when a woman has a particular outlook on what alpha is and a man has a particular outlook, sometimes the definitions match each other, and that's good for those people. But most Nigerian men, especially the ones that are born and raised in Nigeria, they have this alpha fantasy going on. So this one that I was talking to in the group, somehow we were just talking about the ways that Nigerian women are treated by Nigerian men. And I don't know why hair came up, but I showed him a picture of me with my natural hair, which is dreadlocks. My dreadlocks are probably just about touching the beginning of my shoulder, so they're quite short. And yeah, he said to me that I look like a man, and I didn't express any reaction to that because I don't like giving men the power to believe that they've affected me necessarily, especially because the conversation is not that deep. I don't know him like that, but it didn't sit well with me. Like, I remember I got home and I thought, isn't that strange that a black man who I don't even look that different to his sister is telling me that I look like a man for having my hair natural, but he would not say that to a mixed race woman who had her boho locks. He would not say that to a white woman who had her fake spiritual dreadlocks going on. He would not tell either of those women that they look manly. But when you're thinking about how men view themselves as alpha and what they code as masculine, this is where you need to pay attention if you're a black woman, because if you want to be with a man who you consider alpha, you need to be sure that you and that man have the same definition of alpha. Because sometimes a lot of these alpha men, what they want, especially the Nigerian ones that I've come across, majority of them, sorry, you're not going to like the sound of this, but the Nigerian women know this is real tea. Majority of Nigerian men, they like to date light-skinned, i.e., mixed race women. If not, they prefer to date white women because they see that as closer to femininity than they do when they're dating dark-skinned Nigerian women. So when we're thinking about alpha and wanting to be with an alpha man, you need to also think about what they code as feminine. Because for me, this is why if someone was to ask me, would you want to be with an alpha man? My answer would not be yes, because the men that I've grown up around, the men that I share community with, Nigerian men, and I wouldn't include my own brothers in this because they weren't raised that way, but I can't speak for what they're like when they're out in the world and I'm not around them. What I can say is that the Nigerian men that I've interacted who are closer in age to me, if not older than me, there are very similar ideologies that I witness. And because most of the times, right, I'm the dark-skinned friend, and I'm not even that dark-skinned, guys. Like, I am in an interesting position on the skin tone chart where in the UK, if I'm hanging around certain friends, right, because you got different friends for different things, right? Some friends I have, they're like, those are my girls who we're going to go and party. Sometimes that group tends to be dominated by like lighter skinned friends, right? Mixed race friends. Not an issue. And there's nothing wrong with being mixed race, by the way. We don't choose what body we're born into. I'm just addressing that the world works in a particular way and colorism is rife, especially when we're talking about alpha and femininity. So when I'm around my light skinned friends, I am the dark skinned friend. And I notice how men behave towards me. When I'm around my darker skinned friends, maybe let's say I'm in Nigeria, or it just happens to be that I just happen to be the lightest one in the group, I notice a difference in how men treat me versus my darker skinned friends. So there are times when I benefit from that lighter skinned privilege, depending on where I am in the world. And there are times when I don't have access to that light skin privilege. Again, it depends on where I am in the world and who I am around. And again, colorism plays a huge role in this conversation of alpha man and feminine woman. Because this guy who I told you was calling me masculine, or no, it's telling me I look like a man for having my hair in dreadlocks. Classic Nigerian man, you know, we had a different conversation, and somehow body count came in and he brought it up. But it was somewhere along the lines of like what he wouldn't date a woman if she had a high body count. And I'm like, yeah, but that's a very stupid thing to say in my personal opinion, because it's like, first of all, you have no way of checking what her body count is. If a woman wants to lie to you about her body count, she can lie to you and you wouldn't know anything different. There are women who have pushed out entire human beings and the pussy still grips. So shut up, you don't know what you're talking about. Also, the fact that you assess a woman's worth according to how many people she slept with, that tells me that as a man, you agree that men can bring down your worth if you're laying with them. So what are we really saying then? What are we really saying? And if we're going along the rationale of men can really bring down your worth if you lay with them, then surely it would make sense for women to be more picky about which men they lay with, because a man can clearly bring down your worth so much so that other men will have an issue with you having been with other men. So men know that they are dirty and smelling, which is why when they know that you slept with a few, they're like, ew, you slept with men. It's like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do here as a woman. Like, what do you want from me? You want me to be experienced, but you don't want me to be experienced. So that's why I don't listen to what men say anymore. I just do what I want, and whoever likes me is going to have to like me. That's the way I do things, because let me tell you, this conversation of alpha man, it brings up this discussion, this ongoing discussion on the internet regarding femininity. And femininity has become a huge theme as women have become more hypergamous in their dating, meaning that women are undergoing a shift where a large majority of women are now looking towards dating men who are going to actually have resources, essentially partnering up, marrying up, for lack of a better word or phrasing. And so femininity becomes a conversation, because I see these discussions happen where there are certain women who say, you know, if you want to be with a masculine man, eye roll. If you want to be with a masculine man, and I would use masculine man interchangeably with an alpha man, because this is about polarities here, because I think being feminine is the polar opposite of being alpha male, right? So the general discourse out there pushes the idea that as a woman, if you want to be with an alpha man who's a provider and a protector, yeah, you need to be really feminine. But then when we look at the definition of what is seen as feminine in the eyes of said alpha men, they expect you to be docile. They want you to cook and clean. They want you to have a low body count. They want you to not raise your voice or argue back at them. They want you to just make yourself available to them and be extra soft and pretty and girly and smell good and look good and just kind of exist in the background of their life. And I think in a woman's definition of what is seen as femininity, I mean, I don't think it's that far away from what I just said, because there are a lot of women who really want to be partnered with a man, and they really want that lifestyle of, like, you know, the masculine provider, protector guy, the alpha, the leader. So they present and process their identities through this framing of femininity. So, you know, dressing feminine, which I imagine is like, you know, wearing more skirts than jeans, wearing more dresses than trousers. And I just think, you know what? I don't want to necessarily throw away the femininity thing entirely, because I do see how it can work, the femininity thing. It just depends on what your intentions are for your life and how far you're willing to go with adapting yourself for a particular outcome. For me personally, whilst I would consider myself very feminine, I know that when I'm looking at the ways that I am perceived in my community that I share with black men, I'm seen as masculine because I am very verbal and vocal about my thoughts, and that's a trait that men tend to code as masculine. So that's why the alpha men of the internet really hate me because they can't beat me into submission. Their fake dominion doesn't work over here. They don't run anything around here. So what's interesting, touching again on being the dark skinned friend and what I've observed from being around men. And again, when I say I'm the dark skinned friend, there's a huge asterisk next to that because one, I'm not that dark skinned. Not that there's anything wrong with being dark skinned. If anything, dark skin is fucking beautiful. But to give clear context here, there is an asterisk next to me describing myself as the dark skinned friend because that is subjective based on who I am around and where I am in the world. So when you're the friend who isn't being desired by the men around you in that moment, you get to actually see how men treat women that they're not attracted to. So I've experienced this before, right? Where, and I'm sure fat women can relate to this. I'll explain why fat women have been brought into this conversation. But you know when you're the woman who the guy isn't moving to or the guys are not trying to move to, and you see how they treat the women that they want to chat up, very like, they treat them very, very feminine. What's the word? They treat them very gentlemanly and they're doting on them and they're giving them all this attention. And then when they come and turn to you, they want to come and knuckle pump you. Like, they want to give you the kind of handshake they give to one of their boys. Like, they treat you like you're some sort of sidekick, spare wheel, might as well be a dude kind of energy. And not only do they treat you in that way, they feel more comfortable saying certain things around you because they don't fancy you and they see you as one of the boys because they're not attracted to you, and for some reason there's something about you they find masculine or that they just code as unfeminine, and so they don't feel there's any consequence in them being open about how they feel. So I've been exposed to a lot of men's ideologies against my own will because I've been the undesired. I'd say undesired, again, that's an asterisk next to it because that undesirability is only in the context of that particular moment. In the grand scheme of things, I'm very desirable. I'm desired by myself and I'm desired by many. But, you know, you can't be liked by everyone. And when you're a black woman who has visibly black features, this becomes a more prevalent theme in your life. So you learn to not be taking it personally and you just observe what's going on around you. So I've had men say some very strange things around me, especially black men, especially the ones that consider themselves alpha. And the worst part is that they don't see anything wrong with what they're saying. And when I catch myself in debates with them, first of all, they don't know what they're getting themselves into when they try to enter a debate with me. But when I catch myself in a debate with these men who hold these like quote unquote alpha ideologies while the whole time they're colorist and they're misogynistic, they try to still argue around it. I had that same black guy that told me I look like a man with my locks. He said to me that the reason why he doesn't, he said the reason why he doesn't like to date black women is because he finds them aggressive. And I was like, again, in my head, I'm like, but you would not describe a mixed race woman as aggressive. You would not describe a white woman as aggressive. You find black women aggressive because we are not with the bullshit anymore. The jig is up. We know our worth and we act on it. We're vocal when we don't feel pleased. That's what you consider aggressive. So do you find your mum aggressive? You think your mum's aggressive? Do you think your mum looks like a man? Do you think that your mum deserves to be treated like a man because you don't find her dainty and feminine? Because again, the cognitive dissonance is very present with these men where they agree that their sisters deserve to be treated well. Their dark-skinned sisters who look not too different from them, they believe their sisters deserve to be treated well. But should a random woman that they're not related to who looks like their sister have any kind of self-esteem, they don't like that shit. That's why I'm like, the people that want to be dating alpha men, you know that they're not that smart up there, right? Like alpha men, a lot of them, they know how to make money. They know how to wear drip. They know how to look nice. But a lot of alpha men, they're controlling, they're misogynistic, and they're colorist. And remember that when I'm speaking about alpha men, I'm still speaking about this from the perspective of being a black woman that is in community with other black people. We haven't even touched on what white alpha men are doing. Thankfully, I don't even have any experience with white alpha men. I don't know what that is. My experience with white men has pretty much generally been that they are submissive to me. And it's not submissive as in me necessarily like being horrible to them or me being like mean dominatrix mode. It's just like the role that white men have played in my life has been them just doing stuff for me. It's not been a thing where they've held any kind of leadership position in my life. So I can't really speak much for white alpha men outside of what I see on the internet, which is very I think of fermented balls. I think of anime avatars for their profile pictures on Twitter. I think of them being people that shoot birds as a sport. I think of them being people who love the porn that has a title of, oh, teen girl gets rammed by her stepbrother. All that weird, nasty, incestuous leaning type shit. That's what I see. That's how I see white alpha men. But thankfully, I have no lived experience in conjunction with white alpha men, and I hope not to, because there ain't nothing keeping me over there. But what I can say is, let's revisit this word protector, because the general theme here with alpha men is they want to be a protector. Okay. Protect women from what? What are we protecting women from? Is it the wind? Is it squirrels? Is it rain? What could it be that men have decided they need to protect women from? Are we protecting women from random planes falling out of the sky and landing on them? No, because that wouldn't be sufficient protection. I think the answer that we're looking for is other men. Yes, men men do this thing, yeah, which again points to their stupidity and cognitive dissonance, where they will triple, double, mega insist that they are protectors of women because they're protecting women from other men. But they won't acknowledge that men are violent and men have enough of a reputation, so much so that women should be more vigilant and suspicious of men. So what do I mean in what I said? What I mean in what I said is a man will swear up and down that men are protectors and that they are here to protect women from other men. But then when you speak about the ways that men are abusive and a danger to be around, they argue that, yeah, but I've seen that there's domestic violence where women hit men too. And it's like, well, I'm not sure how we got here, because we were talking about men being providers. And you said, yes, men are protectors and providers, and they're protecting women from other men. So when women talk about said protection and we discuss what behaviors men are meant to be protecting us from, now they want to argue that it's not that bad. So which one is it? So I'm once again asking, what is the appeal with alpha men and why does everyone seem to want one? Because from my perspective, alpha men are really embarrassing, unreliable, and they're not that smart. You're better off finding you a submissive man who just wants to be in the picture, who is just happy to be there, happy to make your life easier. That's what you should be doing. In my personal opinion, if you're a woman who's going to be dating men. Because I noticed that, and this is again drawing from Nigerian culture and lived experience of being a Nigerian woman, these alpha men, they hate feminists. They hate feminists. They be like, oh yeah, yeah, I don't like the way I don't like the way that these feminists are taking it too far. Taking what too far? Yeah, they're taking this whole feminism thing too far. Every day you hate men, you hate men. Every day, oh yeah, I can live without a man. I don't need a man. Yes, you do. Yes, you do need a man. I'm like, actually, I think the feminists are onto something. And this is again why where I can, I try to avoid being around alpha men. The few times I've ended up against my will around alpha men is because somebody is dating one of them and I happen to be friends with one of those people, or because I'm in a mixed group, or because somebody has paid for the table that we're on and it happens to be a couple alpha men in that mix and I have to just endure them for as long as we're going to be on that table for. But yeah, this disdain that I've noticed that Nigerian men have towards feminists, like you're angry that women are taking their power into their own hands and doing something about the impression that you guys exert on them. You want us to take it quietly. You want us to take it lying down. So that's why I'm like, to the women who enjoy these traits in men, you need to understand the role and position you occupy in this world. Where am I going with this? Well, if you're a white woman who has a fetish for black dick, you are probably enabling colorism. You are probably dating men who hate black women, and the only reason they like you is because they hate black women. I'm not saying this is the case for every single black man who dates white women, just like how I wouldn't argue that it's the same case for every single black woman who dates white men. Because remember that interracial dating carries different reasons depending on what gender is what race. So where am I going with this? Well, when black men date outside of their race, especially the ones that call themselves alpha men, when those black men date outside of their race, they're usually doing so because they don't like the women that look like them. When black women date outside of their race, for the most part, they're doing so because the love is easier with men who are not the same heritage or skin tone or culture as them. And it's quite a shame, but that's how it be, isn't it? So that's why I'm like, if you're a white woman and your fetish is black men, and I'll call it a fetish if majority of a dating history has happened to somehow magically be black men. Oh, don't know how I ended up there. Oh, strange coincidence that all the 5 men I've dated in the past 2 years have been black consecutively, one after the other. But I don't have a fetish though. It's like, okay, girl. We'll have to see about that, because if you're a white woman, you need to interrogate why these men are drawn to you. I'm really sorry to break it to you. You may have heard me say this before. I have to say it again for those who have just joined the conversation. If you're a white woman and you attract black men and your dating history has made majority been black men, you may need to ask yourself why they are drawn to you. I don't know if I'm the one who you want to hear this from, but a lot of times when the black men are dating you, it's because they think you're the easier option. A lot of times when these black men are dating you, it's because you freed up the naan really quickly. And this is not to sex shame or to point the finger at women who are more open with their bodies. What I'm saying is it's about access and how quickly you give that access. And if men code that access as convenience, they're going to keep coming back. Another reason you might not want to hear as to why black men are drawn to you, white women, is because they how do I say this in a very gentle way? They deep down know that you like the added layer of masculinity you see in them as black men, and it makes them feel more powerful to know that you enjoy taking their big black dick. They probably perceive that you are used to seeing smaller dicks in your own white community. So they know that as black men, they are a novelty experience to you. And you as a white woman, you know that you're a novelty experience to that black man. So you can both do your colorism and your anti-blackness with each other. Now, I'm not saying that every single white woman who has dated black men is necessarily doing it from a place of fetish, but it is side-eye. There's something side-eye about it. I'm not against it, but there's a mild side-eye. When we talk about black women who date white men, what I touched on earlier, we're going to expand on that. So when I said that oftentimes the case tends to be that black women who date white men are doing so because it's just easier. And as someone who, I wouldn't really say I've like dated white men per se. I have taken their money. I've engaged with them. You know, I've let them take me out on dates. But dated as in been their girlfriend, I've not done that yet. But what I can say is it is easier in my experience when I'm around white men because there is something about them really enjoying whatever it is they get out of being around black women. It could be argued that yes, those white men have a fetish to some degree for black women. My thing is, right, I can't control how someone's desires manifest. What I do have control over is the treatment I'm willing to endure from somebody. Because I know a white guy who I perceive it as a fetish for black women because all of his dating history has been black women. And there was a time when he dated someone I knew for a long time that was a black woman. And then when he went through a period of being separated from that woman and was like on dating apps here and there, and me and him would like have conversations briefly about maybe a girl he's going to go see from the app, it's always been a black woman. And it wasn't something that necessarily made me feel uncomfortable per se, because I'm not gonna lie, black women are fucking sexy. Like, duh, of course you're supposed to like black women. But at the same time, where I started to feel uncomfortable about it was when I would end up in certain conversations with this white guy about the ways that white people behave, and I would notice this sort of like defensiveness, or when I would speak about my disappointment towards certain male behavior, again I would notice this defensive response from him, and it made me feel weird because I was like, you like dating black women, but you don't like it when black women are vocal about their disappointment towards the way they're treated by men. So it's almost like it goes back to this whole thing again of you like the idea of us. And this doesn't just apply to white men. This is just across the board, especially within this conversation of alpha men, in air quotes. Men just love to consume us as content, as ego strokes, as energetic supply. But anytime we start to exhibit actual human traits, that's where the ick is formed on their part. So, this is why when people ask me, you know, what's your type? Like what kind of men do you like? I would not say alpha. I would still say provider, but I wouldn't say alpha. Now, when people ask me, oh, okay, so like, is your type submissive? Like, would you date a submissive man? I mean, it depends on what the submissive is, because I wouldn't be turned on if he was submissive to other men. What I'll be turned on by is if he does his silly little flowery alpha thing with the other men. They can like bash each other's dicks and play their contest of who's the most Hulk smash. You can do that with your boys, but as long as you're around me, I enjoy when the man switches to become more submissive around me. But it's not the submission where it's like me yelling at him and me bitching him around. It's more it's more the type of submission where he just wants to be of service to me. Because you know what's interesting, yeah? I see this double standard flying around where men and women love to say this thing where it's like, when a woman is truly loved properly by a man, she can't help but submit. And I'm like, okay, what does that mean, guys? Because if I was to flip it and say, When a man is truly in love with a woman, he can't help but submit. What do we think of how that sounds? What do we think of that? Because to me, when I think about, oh, when a man truly loves a woman, he can't help but submit, I'm like, yes, yes, that's what I'm talking about. But then when I think about the phrase, when a woman truly loves a man and feels loved by a man, she can't help but submit, I'm like, not sure about that. Because it's about power dynamics, guys. You have to understand that if a man submits to a woman, he doesn't lose anything in the grand scheme of him still having his own identity and sureness of his place in the world as a man, because he still benefits from patriarchy. Whether he chooses to submit to his girlfriend or his wife or not, he still benefits from patriarchy. The world still perceives him as a man, the world still treats him as a man, and he gets the perks of being a man, submissive or not. Now, when I think about a woman submitting to a man, I'm like, girl, this one doesn't taste good. I don't like the way this one tastes. This one tastes a bit sour and gone off. Because what do you mean submitting to a man because you feel loved? So when we think about submitting to a man, that means we're giving them what they want. We're giving them what they expect, which is, yeah, I'm so in love that I can't help but wash the plates. I'm so in love that I can't help but wait hand on foot on this man. I'm so in love with this man and I feel so loved by him that I can't help but fold all his boxers and wash his trouser for him with my bare hands, even though I got my nails done yesterday. Guys, I don't have that range of emotion, you know. I don't have it. I think for me, if I'm head over heels in love with a man, what would I do that would be close to out of character? I guess maybe I mean, I'll probably write him cute notes and put it in his bag or something. Or I would I would be very look, when I'm in a good place with a guy that I'm dating, I'm very sexual with that guy. I don't really feel very domestic goddess like though. I'm not like that, unfortunately, guys. I burn water. I can't cook. I don't have any intentions of learning to anytime soon because my goal is to, if I decide to be partnered with someone, I'll be outsourcing that. I can hire, my husband or partner can hire a cook. And maybe if I decide to change my curiosities towards cooking, then he can pay for me to do a culinary course. And we'll see how that goes. But I don't like cooking. And I don't see myself becoming a woman that cooks just because I'm in love with a man. Especially if it's an alpha man that's like, I expect you to cook and clean. Ew. I expect you to maintain that hairline of yours. And you can't even do that. I expect you to pay all the bills. I expect you to let's create some false expectations for men to live up to so they can see what it's like to be a woman. As a man, why is your hairline receding at 45 years old? Can't you control it? Why are you so hormonal and hysterical and emotional? That's why you're losing your hair. That's why your hairline looks like that, because you're too emotional and hysterical. As a man, you need to understand that your woman needs to see somebody that's sexy all the time. So you need to keep yourself groomed all the time and you need to sleep with your beard makeup on. I don't know what beard makeup is, but whatever that is, you need to sleep with it on so that when you wake up, your woman will want you. Because as a man, if you drop and slip up on your looks, the woman has to cheat. Do you understand? So as a man, why are you gaining weight in your tummy at 50 years old? As a man, your tummy should be flat at all times and I should see defined abs at all times. Even if you're not going to the gym, at all times you should have abs. Yes. And as a man, why are you 5'7"? Why are you not 6'4"? I don't understand that. Can't you just grow? What do you mean? What do you mean this is the height you've been since you're 15? That sounds like you're making it up. As a man, I cannot be attracted to you if you're under 6'4". That means that you cannot produce any sperm. That means that you're not fertile. Can you see how ridiculous this all sounds? Because it is ridiculous and none of it is fair. But these are the standards that are exerted onto women. Men be like, oh, if my wife gains weight when she's pregnant, I'm going to leave her and cheat. Okay. Men be like, oh, if my wife, if my wife, if my wife needs round the clock care, I don't know if I can stay for that. Wow. So this is why I'm like, when you lot are talking about your alpha men and your alpha this and your alpha that, I'm like, have you thought about scenarios where you're gonna really need to rely on him? What's that gonna look like? Because the two scenarios I can think of are pregnancy and spontaneous shit that could happen to any of us, where anybody can become disabled, anybody can encounter um like mental unwellness where they actually need to be taken care of, as in they need a carer for a certain time in their life. Can you count on that man to be your carer? Can you count on that man to sign documents on your behalf? Can you count on that man to know what your needs are? Your dietary needs, your medical needs, your emotional needs. Can you count on that man to do that? Or are you only just being like, yeah, he needs to have abs and he needs to be tall and he needs to have a deep voice? Because my thing is, look, even me, I'm lumping myself into this too. Because the reality is, yeah, when I'm thinking about what I find desirable in a man, I'm not gonna lie, it's not that many things. Provide, like me more than I like you, and just be romantic to me. So that doesn't cover me up. That doesn't cover me if something was to happen to me and I need that man to be my carer. I don't know if he can be my carer. I can't trust that he will do that. Men have never given me the vibe of them being selfless enough to be someone's carer and not press someone else's nyash. I don't trust that. I don't. So when you're thinking about, oh yeah, I want to be with an alpha man, you know, those are the kind of men who be like making up reasons to cheat, right? And they'll double down and justify it and tell you, but I'm a man. You know I can't help it. Next time, don't gain weight. I'm like, okay. Well, as a woman, you know that I can't help it. I can't help but spend another man's money. So next time, don't lose your money. Because if you lose your money, you lose me. I remember I said this to a guy. I was, oh my God. So I was, again, this is another one of those alpha bunch. Because my thing is, right, I like to just throw my wildest cards in the air when I'm around. When I'm around these men who consider themselves alpha, I love to move mad. I just love to be like, well, seeing as you're not attracted to me, I might as well tell you all of my craziest ideas because it's not going to change anything. And I'm curious to see how this is going to reflect when I say this to you. So there's one guy that I know, and what does he do? I think he's like a trader, like a crypto trader, and he's really good at it. And so me and him what were we talking about? We were talking about, because you know with crypto you can like make a lot of money and then you can lose a lot of money. It is a big roller coaster to live on. It is mental. But he does that for a living, I presume. And we were talking about a particular coin that he bought into and he lost quite a lot of money from that. And I was saying to him, like, this must be so stressful, man. Like, I don't get how you're able to not lose your mind. And then we started talking about somehow dating was a topic that came up just after we were talking about the crypto. And then he was like, he said to me, okay, what would you do if you were dating a guy and, you know, he makes all this money, but he loses it? Like, what would you do? And my answer genuinely was, if he loses his money, he loses me. Baby, how I'ma be your motivation? That's the motivation. I'm sorry, that's the motivation you need to keep your money. Because what I'm not going to do is be with a man who is financially irresponsible. And I'm not saying that crypto traders are financially irresponsible necessarily, but if the nature of that man's way of making money is unpredictable and unreliable, then that's not somebody that I see myself partnering with for the long term. And if he loses his money, yes, he does lose me. That sounds really cold until you think about what happens when a woman loses her looks and what men do. Because by a woman losing her looks, what I mean is that whole thing of where men are like, oh yeah, if she gets pregnant and gains weight and gets all these stretch marks and doesn't lose her baby weight, I'm going to have to cheat. I'm not attracted to her anymore. She loses me. So that's why I'm like, if it's okay for men to leave us when we gain weight from the pregnancy they put inside us, then it's okay for us to leave them when they lose their money and their hairline. Because I don't see how women benefit from taking this, like, oh, higher moral ground of being like, yeah, even though men are horrible people and they say really out of pocket shit to women and they treat us really, really badly, I'm going to take the moral higher road and I'm going to still be there for him, even if he's going to leave me in 10 years' time anyway. I'm going to do the right thing because as a human being, I have to do what it feels right and I have to do what feels true to me. Okay, girl. If you say so, I am not going to hold you. I'm not going to hold you because as a black woman, specifically a Nigerian woman, I've already been exposed to the worst of men. I've seen what men are capable of. So when other women are doing this whole, oh, you got to give the benefit of doubt, I'm like, okay, girl, do your thing. I ain't going to hold you. Girl. I think another thing as well is on this same topic of like alpha man and alpha. Would I describe myself as an alpha woman? I don't like the answer I'm about to give. But I think I would describe myself as an alpha woman. Only because when we look at the definitions of what we generally code as alpha, it's usually someone who is not afraid to be authoritative, someone with a deep voice, someone who has leadership traits, someone who isn't shy to be confrontational. That's very me. Guys, it's so interesting, right? We're going to quickly touch on astrology just to give context here. I'm a Libra rising. A Libra's worst nightmare is confrontation. But for some reason, I'm a very confrontational person, you know. And I think it's because I got that fire sign sun. I'm a Sagittarius sun. And I have my Mars in Virgo. So by the time I confront someone, I've thought very carefully about how it could go, what I'm going to say, and how I'm going to exit that situation. So I don't just confront without knowing what I'm doing. I'm not an Aries. And I actually don't have any Aries placements. I mean, I've got a bunch of stuff in my first house. I've got Venus in the first house. But and my North Node is in the first house. Because my Libra rising, it sits right in the middle of Libra, if that makes sense. So my first house, the planets are just like clunked into the Scorpio side of things. The Scorpio comes after Libra in the chart. Sorry guys, if you're not into astrology, I'm probably tail spinning you right now. But for those who are into astrology, this is giving you the context as to why I am the way I am, especially in the conversation of being confrontational. So as I was saying, whilst you'd think that it's the Aries people who be confrontational, which I do think they have more of a propensity for that. The thing with Aries is that they're more impulsive, so they might confront without thinking about what they're going to say, what's going to happen, how to get out of this, you know? Whereas as a person who is a Libra, right, as much as I don't wake up wanting to confront, right? But if I know I'm going to confront, I will have thought about what I'm going to say, and I'll be very gracious with it, and I keep it pushing. So that's considered an alpha trait, being able to confront, what's the word? Being able to confront things. What's another alpha trait? I guess, I mean, I'm not very tall. I'm only 5'7". But I do know how to hold space. Like, I know how to pull energy towards me in a room. So, as an alpha woman, by definition on paper, it makes sense why I get on well with submissive men. Get on very well with submissive men. Now, my issue with submissive men as an alpha woman is that they're not necessarily any better as men just because they're submissive. If anything, what you'll come across as a dominant slash alpha woman in the realm of discussing submissive men is a lot of them, they have this fetish for women who are dominant, because what they're thinking of in regards to engaging with a dominant woman, they're just thinking of having sex. They're just thinking of sex, sex, sex. And as someone who's got a lot of self-control and is not that sexual, I find it very weird when people are very like sex driven, like, and that's usually men. I just find it weird. So I'm like, oh, okay, that's so strange that you just care this much about sex. Is that all you know? Is it everyday sex? God. But people have this fantasy of you, like, I guess it's that whole thing of they just want you to ride them on the top. They want you to be on top, but ride them. And I don't know, what do these men want you to do? Make you eat them out? No, make them eat. They want you to make them eat you out because, wow, dominant woman. Of course, I'll do what you say. I love eating pussy anyway. It's like, I mean, that to me is a lack of imagination, a lack of creativity. Because if the only way you know how to exude dominance, or the only way you know how to engage with dominance is through sex, boring. You're so boring. You are so boring. I'm so sorry. Because you know what's interesting, yeah, and it's so hilarious. My way of getting rid of men who I don't want to talk to is just asking them for money. It is the most foolproof way to make a man disappear. It's easier than telling a man that you're a lesbian or telling him you have a boyfriend. So when these men are like, yeah, I'm a dom, I like to dominate women, I'm like, ew, brother, what's that, brother? Ew, you like to dominate women? That sounds so weak to me. Like, what, you think you being a dom is you being like, good girl? Ugh. That only sorry to who this may offend, yeah, but this is how I see it as someone who's a dom myself and who's been around these spaces for a while. The only women who get off on being around men who call themselves doms are women who are, I'm sorry guys, but there's an insecurity there. There's an insecurity there as a woman. How are you gonna let a man run patriarchy on you on purpose? But let me be balanced in what I'm saying though, because it's not every single male dom that is necessarily crooked. I don't think it's necessarily every single woman who enjoys domination from a man that is insecure or weak. Where I can see healthy domination from a man is probably like, let's say, how do I phrase this? Let's say like that guy just enjoys taking care of you. He enjoys taking care of you. Maybe I don't know, maybe he has a kink for calling you a good girl and telling you when you've been a really bad girl. But still, all of that just still feels very sexual though. Because for me, as a dominant woman, majority of the ways that I play with men, it's not necessarily sexual. Like, not a single one of the subs that I've had as men, not a single one and these men are giving me money and bought me things. Not a single one of them knows what my pussy looks like. Not a single one of them has pressed a breast. Not a single one of them has touched my nyash. At most, they have probably at most, I would say one of them, I allowed him to suck my toes. But the one who's more recent in the timeline that I had, who was giving me money and buying me stuff and taking me out, he at most kissed my heels. He didn't even get to rub my feet. We didn't even make it that far. We could have gone there, but he misbehaved. He misbehaved by saying no to giving me money on Christmas Day. Can you imagine? Even though a few days prior, he'd sent me money. I'm like, For me, a huge ick is when a man says no to sending me money. You said no. Well, guess we won't be seeing each other again. was nice knowing you, but I'm not doing that. Sorry, because I know there's more where that came from. Don't be doing that to me. Guys, I'm dead serious. That's how I know I cannot survive with any kind of alpha nonsense, alpha witting, alpha where. Because look, guys, there's a game that I know how to play, and I only play that game with older men, specifically older Nigerian men. There's a game you have to play, right? And that game, that game is play dumb but be smart inside. You don't show what you know, and that's how I engage with older men, like especially the older Nigerian ones who got the actual cars. Girl, listen. I don't even be telling these older men what I do. When they ask me what I do, I make up something that just goes according to the vibe I'm feeling that day because they don't give a fuck what I do. They don't care. As long as they know that you can get yourself from A to B, they're not that pressed about the specifics of what you do for a living because they have way more money than you anyway. These Nigerian men, because remember, if you're dealing with Nigerian men, you're dealing with ego. And most of them see themselves as alpha. So if you want to play into their little game and get what you want to get out of them, there's a strategic way to entertain their ego without putting yourself on the back foot. So what does that look like? In my experience and in my approach, it starts with, like I said, not telling them what I do. So I don't tell these men that I've got a podcast where I cuss niggas out daily. Of course I'm not going to tell them that. Of course not, because that's me showing all my cards. No. What I do is I tell them, oh, I'm in between jobs at the moment. I recently was working as a assistant at a marketing company. I just make shit up, girl. Just make it up. Doesn't matter. Make it up. Because what they need to know is that I'm here and they can see me. Because you see these men, yeah. There's this sparkle in their eye when they see a sexy woman that's like 15 years younger than them. They be getting very excited, and I know that excitement when I see it. So I learned from very early on with these men, you just got to play the game, because it's not about playing to win their heart. It's about playing to win what you want to get out of it and keeping it moving with swiftness. So sometimes these guys will expect for a woman to, get too loudmouthed and sassy. It's like, actually, you know what? I'm just going to take all this information in and use that to determine how I'm going to approach this. But I'm not going to allow him to know that I'm as smart as I actually am. He will notice how smart I am in other ways, but he doesn't need to know specifics of what I know. Because with alpha men, which is why I know that they're very stupid, they would rather a woman pretends to not know anything than for them to actually just date an intelligent woman. Because one thing about alpha men, yeah, that's how I know this shit ain't real. One thing about alpha men is that they like knowing that a woman needs them, but they will never go and date a woman who is as self-sufficient as they are. They're never going to date a woman who is as mentally strong as they are. But at the same time, having said all of that, they love to attempt to date the women who are as mentally strong as them, because it's a process of trying to chip away at their self-esteem and tear them down. Which is why I find it very amusing to see that even though the alpha men and the pick-me's deserve each other, you're rarely going to see them two together. Why is it that the pick-me's have not been picked? Why have the pick-me's still not been picked? Because according to alpha male, their definition of the ideal woman is a pick-me. Pick-me's be like, I'll cook, I'll clean. If a man says that the sky is blue even though it's green, I'm going to agree with him because that's my man. That's my man. Yeah, men are the stronger sex, and men are the more logical and less emotional sex. Yeah, I'm going to agree with everything a man says. Wah. But then these men, they don't even like women who think like that. What they enjoy is pursuing women who are above and beyond their league and trying to bring them down. That's the satisfaction they get out of the challenge. That's why I'm like, everybody is confused here. That's why when I notice that a man is alpha by more sort of basic regular definition, I tend to avoid. It's okay. He can keep the muscles. It's fine. Don't worry. Because for me, I just feel like, look, a man's going to do what he's going to do regardless. And I don't feel this sense of urgency to change anything about myself, to have a man in my life. For me, the terms are, if a man's going to be in my life, he's providing and protecting. And I can still enjoy that same provision and protection with a man who is not alpha, who just wants to make me happy, make my life easy. So if you're a woman who likes alpha men, you may need to explore your unchecked, your possibly unchecked homophobia. Because a lot of these alpha men are homophobic as fuck. And if you're a woman who is dating an alpha man, I'm looking at you funny, because what do you and him have in common? Because you know how they say when two people are together, they're equally yoked to some degree. And initially, when I used to hear that maybe a few years ago, I didn't really agree. I was like, equally yoked? Nah, I mean, they're not really equally yoked. But now I'm like, actually, nah, think about it though. Because for a woman to be, for example, it's like what I was saying earlier about colorism, right? When I think about like light-skinned women who are dating colorist men, there is an equal yoking there somewhere, because as a light-skinned woman, you know deep down, I refuse to believe that you don't know that people treat you differently to the way you treat dark-skinned people. How do I know this? Because if I was to ask a mixed-race woman, would you like to trade spots with a dark-skinned woman? Like, if you were given the choice to trade positions with a dark-skinned woman and live in her body, would you do it? I don't think the answer would be yes. But if I was to ask a dark-skinned woman who has been massively affected by colorism, would you trade spots with a mixed-race woman? I'm pretty sure that a lot of people would say yes, because there is a level of ease and access you have when you're light-skinned. So when I think about being equally yoked with a man, and I think about mixed-race women who date colorist men, I'm like, you two must have something in common, because as a mixed-race woman, why are you okay with dating a man who's colorist? For me personally, it wouldn't sit well with me if I heard a man say that he don't like darker skinned women because he finds them aggressive, but he likes light skinned women because it's more peaceful. I kid you not, I've heard a man say that verbatim to me, a black Nigerian man for that matter. And if I was the light skinned partner to that man, and I heard that and I kept quiet, to me that means that as the light skinned woman, I'm enabling that colorism because I'm benefiting from it. So that's why I'm like, And this is not judgment. I'm just saying that this is how things sometimes end up happening. And that's why I'm once again asking, like, what's people's deal with alpha men? Because homophobia is a big thing. Homophobia is a big thing for these alpha men. A lot of them are homophobic. Just like how most of them are misogynistic, meaning that they expect certain behaviors from women, and anything outside of that is coded as masculine. Don't you think that they will have similar outlook towards men? They would expect certain behaviors from men, and anything coded outside of that expected masculinity will be seen as feminine and therefore gay. And if I dare I take this theory a little step further out, a lot of these alpha men secretly be down low gay. Ooh, who said that? Who said that? Guys, real talk though. A lot of these guys be gay, down low gay. They're in homoerotic relations with other men. That's why you can't be taking men too seriously, okay? As the red pill movement rises, may the 4B movement rise in return. Because, guys, what the hell, man? I'm so sorry, but what the hell? When I think about red pill, which is the incel movement, for those who might not know, and the incel movement, it stands for involuntary celibate, which basically means nobody wants to fuck me, so I don't have anyone to have sex with, and that's why I hate women. When I think about that, I'm like, This is why women just need to make it even harder for men to sleep with us. I just think it's amusing because men cannot live without women. They cannot. That's why they get so upset when women are like, "Oh, I don't need a man." They'll be like, "Yes, you do. You angry, bitter, man hating feminist." It's like, how are you going to be angry at me for saying I don't need you? Do you want me to need you? Because when you now need a man and you have demands of him that involve emotional responsibilities and household responsibilities, now he doesn't want to be needed. So which one is it? Because what it is that men want you to rely on them so that they can exert dominion over you, and that's where they derive their power from. It's not that complicated. That's why I keep saying, if you like alpha men, you're going to need to interrogate that. You need to ask yourself, what does alpha mean in your perspective? And have you met any men that have exhibited those traits without it causing you any kind of turmoil or discomfort? And if you do know of any men who exhibit positive and healthy traits of alpha, what does that look like? Because to me, positive and healthy exhibition of alpha traits is all bills are paid. It's handled as a common phrase that I want to be hearing. Oh, it's handled, baby. I got you. Ooh, I love an I got you. Yeah, I got you. What else is alpha or masculine? Another masculine thing. When a man takes initiative rather than lead. I'm not into this whole leading thing. Please, you're not leading me anywhere, bro. I got City Mapper. But in terms of taking initiative, I like that. So what I mean by taking initiative is if a man knows what my favorite food is and he's ordered it for me because he knows that I'm arriving in 40 minutes and he's timed the delivery to arrive just in time for me to get in, get settled, remove my outside clothes and relax, and the food is there, surprise, surprise, that is hot. That's not him leading me. That's him taking initiative. If a man knows that I really want to go to Paris and I've been wanting to go to Paris for the whole year, and he knows that I have this particular week free in my calendar and he's booked the trip ahead, he's handled all the flights or Eurostar, hotel sorted, everything blessed. He knows that I'm going to want to go shopping. He's allocated money for me to go shopping and have my fun. He's my personal photographer for the trip, Everything's set, good. He's organized that because he took initiative. So while he's still exhibiting what could be considered leadership qualities, he's not leading me nowhere. He's just being a person that uses his fucking brain. I don't feel like I need to be led anywhere, guys. I'm not going to lie. Like, I've really tried to think about this whole, like, a man who's going to lead me thing. I'm like, but lead me to where? Where's everyone going? Where's everyone going and why do you need a man to take you there? Guys, please tell me. I want to know because I'm actually getting worried now that everyone is going to this promised land and I'm missing out. Someone fill me in. Where y'all going? And why wasn't I invited? Do I really need a man to be able to go there? Because I can pick one up off the street and then we can go. Just tell me what's the motive? What do I need to wear? How many bags do I need to bring? Would I need my wig? Just give me the lowdown so that I can find me a fake leader. Because this whole, and then he's going to lead me. What do you mean? What do you mean? These men don't even have a plan themselves. Their plan is just to control you and have you in that house. They want to impregnate you and keep you stuck. That's why I'm like, whatever you're doing, just don't get pregnant. Just take your time. Don't rush yourself to get pregnant for these guys. Unless, if you really must, unless you got properties in your name, you're on the will, if he's an older man, just have your financial security in firm place because you don't know how that man might switch up on you after you get pregnant or after you have his children. You just don't know. So you want to be financially protected so that if you decide you have to leave, you're not leaving empty-handed. You're not going to look stupid. It will still hurt, but my God, it will hurt even more if you got nothing to show for it. I have seen it happen, where a woman who's been partnered with a man for like maybe 10 plus years. They didn't marry, but she was partnered with him and the man died and she went to the bank to say the man has died and she is his partner. She didn't have access to any of that money because she's not legally on any documents. That is long. That is a very long position to be in. I would not want to be in that position. So there are ways to reverse engineer that. And again, nothing's going to protect you from experiencing hurt or disappointment in this life because those are inevitable. But what you can do is minimize the impact to enough of a degree where you can handle it when it comes. So what does that look like? If you absolutely must be with an alpha man, pick the kind of alpha that's not going to be controlling you or asking you about your body count. Because this whole controlling thing is like, I met this guy who he was with his girlfriend and I was with one of his friends who was a guy. And somehow the conversation came about of like, should your girlfriend like be submissive to you? Of course these were Nigerian men. Like nothing a Nigerian man loves more than a woman submitted to him. Anyway, the conversation topic was, oh, should your girlfriend submit to you? And the guy who had a girlfriend, Nigerian guy, I don't think his girlfriend was Nigerian though. But this guy, he said, if I tell my girlfriend not to go somewhere because I don't think it's safe, she should listen to me. And I was like, but she's her own person. She doesn't have to listen to you. She can consider your advice, but it's her decision to make. And I kid you not, like an argument ensued from that, you know. Obviously, we weren't fighting, but it became a debate. And I'm like, what are we debating? You don't have any control over your girlfriend. Just because you think you're an alpha man doesn't mean you run anything around here, okay? If your girlfriend decides she wants to go to a party, you're not going to stop her from going to the party, especially if she's friends with someone like me. We're going to put on our mini skirts and we're going out. We'll see you tomorrow, young man. Like, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that because when people are like, I want an alpha man, I'm like, interrogate your definition of alpha man and just be sure that it matches what men think of alpha. Because if your definition of alpha is at odds with men's definition of alpha, then you may need to make your search or your dating options a bit more specific. Because what these men consider alpha, I'm telling you guys, what these men consider alpha, especially black men, especially Nigerian men. Because look, Nigerian men are gorgeous. They're sexy. They're attractive. I understand. I get it. What you need to understand is if you're not a Nigerian woman and you want to date Nigerian men, especially because you like that whole alpha manly thing, just be prepared to know that they're going to try and control you. And if you don't have the stomach for it, you're going to end up being a pushover in that relationship. And the only way you get your way is if you keep threatening to leave. But it doesn't look good in the long run because if you keep on threatening to do something that you don't do, that threat stops working eventually. And you don't want to be in a situation where you have to be pushed to your absolute edge for change to happen. So I'm once again asking, before we wrap this episode up, I'm once again asking, what is it that you like about alpha men and why do you want an alpha man? Because if what you want is a provider and someone who's going to protect, then you can still find out without the guy necessarily being controlling over you. And it's possible and it can happen for you. I see it happen for the most regular looking women every single day. So if it can happen for them, it can definitely happen for you too. But I think the starting point has to be you reassessing your own framework of what you consider alpha and possibly doing away with this alpha thing. Does a man need to be alpha for him to be desirable in your eyes? Does a man need to be alpha for him to possess the traits that you like and you value in a man? Questions to ask yourself. I really hope you enjoyed this episode. It's not often that I do these longer form ones, but I felt like this topic really needed the time and and dedication because it is quite a juicy one, and I hope that maybe this episode might inform your own view of what you consider a manly masculine man, and hopefully with that reconsideration of your view of manly alpha men, you might be able to identify men that are better suited for you without needing to bind yourself to someone who is obsessed with controlling you. So have a lovely day or evening whenever you're listening to this. And as always, I'll catch you in the next episode.